Dear friends, today I'm going to tell you a story. A story about a man who transformed the world through sheer determination. A man who learned from his mistakes, who fell, rose again, and went on to make history. After hearing this story, you may stop giving up on your own dreams, because this is the story of Steve Jobs. Yes, the same Steve Jobs from Apple who was once kicked out of college, but later built the iPhone, the Mac, and changed the world forever. The abandoned child who found his fire. Steve was born on February 24, 1955, in California. But sadly, right after birth, his biological mother gave him up. She didn't want just anyone to adopt her son, only college graduate parents. But circumstances led him to a middle-class couple, Paul and Clara Jobs, and they raised him as their own. For years, Steve couldn't understand why he was abandoned. A deep emptiness haunted him, a question that broke him from within. Who am I? Where do I belong? But that question became the first spark of his passion. The restless mind, a rebel in the classroom. Steve Jobs was incredibly intelligent, but traditional education felt like a cage to him. He didn't want to be tied down by the limits of a classroom. His mind worked differently, more expansive, more creative. In school, he was known as mischievous, even rebellious. He often got into arguments with his teachers, not out of defiance, but because he questioned everything. He didn't believe in blind faith. College life, and the decision to drop out. He got into Reed College, but the fees were sky high. His adoptive parents poured their entire life savings into his education, but Steve realized this path wasn't meant for him. And after just 6 months, he dropped out. But that decision wasn't impulsive. It was deliberate. Connecting the dots, a thought that changed lives. Later in life, Steve said in a famous speech, "You can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backward. So you have to trust that the dots will somehow connect in your future." Even after dropping out, he stayed on campus. He attended random classes, like calligraphy, which taught him the beauty of typography and design. Back then, he had no idea that this class would lay the foundation for the unique fonts in the first Apple Macintosh computer. Apple begins, a revolution from a garage. In 1976, Steve Jobs partnered with his friend Steve Wozniak and started Apple in a garage. They built the Apple I, a basic but revolutionary machine. The real success came with Apple II, the world's first computer built for ordinary people, not just scientists or engineers. Apple went from a small startup to a multi-billion-dollar company. Everyone thought Steve Jobs had reached the top of the world, but the story doesn't end there. The biggest shock of his life, fired from his own company. In 1985, internal politics at Apple led to Steve being ousted from the very company he created. Imagine building something with your blood and sweat, only to be told you're no longer needed. It shattered him. He once said, "I had been publicly rejected, but I still loved what I did." Next and Pixar, the second beginning. But he didn't give up. Instead, he started 2 new ventures, Next and Pixar. Pixar would go on to create movies like Toy Story and revolutionize the entire animation industry. Next developed technologies that were ahead of even Apple at the time. In 1996, Apple bought Next, and Steve Jobs returned to Apple. But this time, not just as a founder, but as a visionary leader. iMac, iPod, iPhone, revolution after revolution. After his return, Apple launched a wave of products that weren't just bestsellers. They changed the entire industry. iMac made computers beautiful and user-friendly. iPod, 1,000 songs in your pocket iPhone, redefined what a smartphone could be. Steve proved that true creators are the ones who blend technology with art to create something that touches the heart. The simple life of a genius. Steve Jobs lived a very simple life. He meditated, took long walks, and often came to the office barefoot. For him, life wasn't about making money. It was about making something that improved the lives of others. His favorite quote was, "Stay hungry, stay foolish." The final battle, fighting cancer. In 2003, Steve was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. He underwent many treatments. But eventually, on October 5, 2011, He said goodbye to the world. But before he left, he gave the world a vision that would continue to transform lives. Steve Jobs' thinking, not just products, but perfection. Steve Jobs wasn't just a technologist. He was a philosopher, an artist, a perfectionist. For him, building a product wasn't business, it was art. While designing the iPhone, he once said, "Design is not just what it looks like. Design is how it works." That's why the iPhone, iPad, and Mac aren't just devices. They're experiences, they're emotions. Steve believed that every human being should become the best version of themselves, and whatever you create, you must put your soul into it. Leadership, as defined by Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs' leadership style was strict, but transformative. He never tolerated mediocrity. He expected excellence from his team. Some called him temperamental, a perfectionist. But because of that, Apple products became what they are. He once said, "Great things in business are never done by one person. They're done by a team of people." But that team, he shaped it, guided it, and inspired it himself. The Stanford speech, words that still resonate. Steve Jobs gave a legendary speech at Stanford University, a speech still considered one of the most powerful motivational talks ever. He shared 3 lessons. 1. Connect the dots. You can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only understand them looking backward. So you have to trust in something, your destiny, karma, God, anything. This message is for everyone struggling right now. Everything happening now is leading to something greater. 2. Love what you do. Your time is limited, so don't waste it living someone else's life. Don't let the noise of others' opinions drown out your own inner voice. Steve's message to every young person today: if you don't love what you do, you'll never achieve greatness. 3. Death, life's greatest invention. Death is very likely the single best invention of life. It clears out the old to make way for the new. When he said this, he was already fighting death. Yet, his voice wasn't afraid. It was clear. It was truthful. Steve's final goodbye. Steve knew his time was short, but he worked till his last breath. Apple launched the iPhone 4S in 2011, and just a few days later, on October 5th, Steve Jobs passed away. His last words were, "Oh wow, oh wow, oh wow," words that still echo through the hearts of millions. Perhaps he had glimpsed another world, one we have yet to see. The legacy that will never die. Steve Jobs is no longer with us, but the vision he gave, the revolution he started, will never fade. Today we all carry smartphones. He began that. Today the world sees design, user experience, and technology with new eyes. He gave us that lens. Today every young person, whether in America or Europe, knows that even a dropout can change the world. That hope was his gift to us. The greatest lesson, you can. 2. Steve Jobs' story is not just about a rich man. It's the story of a boy who was abandoned at birth, expelled from school, thrown out of his own company, and still, he never gave up. If Steve Jobs could do it, so can you, because there is no force more powerful than passion. The people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do. Dear friends, this was the story of a man who dared to think differently, a man who was abandoned at birth, who failed time and again, and yet he reshaped the future. If this story touched your heart, if it lit a fire within you, then please, like this video, leave a comment and tell us what inspired you the most, and subscribe to Mind Legacy, where every story is a spark, and every spark builds a legacy. And as Steve Jobs once told the world, stay hungry, stay foolish. This isn't just a quote, it's a mindset, a powerful reminder to keep learning, to take risks, and to never settle for less. Until next time, keep dreaming, keep creating, and always believe in yourself. You're watching Mind Legacy, where legends never die and their stories live forever.